I'm sitting in the edge of the helicopter. Hoist hook is connected to the harness, and my flight mechanic leans over and he goes, "Are you scared?" And I looked at him, I was like, "No." He's like, "You should be." And then he starts lowering me out, and I'm like, "What the?"
That's awesome.
Oh, it was great.
Welcome to the Calm in the Chaos podcast, where we discuss untold heroic experiences and dive into the mindset of the Navy's elite rescue swimmers. Hosted by former U.S. Navy Aviation rescue swimmer, Mount Everest solo summiteer, and best-selling author Brian Dickinson.
Super pumped to have Jason Quinn, 12 and a half years as a helicopter rescue swimmer in the U.S. Coast Guard, host of the Real ResQ Podcast. We met, man, how long's it been now? It's been a few years, huh?
It's been a little while. Yes, sir.
I feel like I
Yep.
might have been the first, at least rescue swimmer, Navy rescue swimmer to be on your show. And I didn't even talk about that because it was all about Everest. So
I know, right?
random.
We
Yeah.
we did have a good conversation. You are one of my few first. I don't know if you're the first, but it's pretty close. So
We're
it's
here
good.
now. Let's just say it's the
Yeah,
first.
we are. Okay.
No, thanks for being here. That's amazing. You're in Saudi Arabia right now. It's early morning for you. It's late night for me. So perfect.
Yes, sir. It's good. It's good. Hey, thanks
Are
for
you a
having
morning
me on,
person?
man.
Oh yeah, thanks.
A little bit of both. So
Yeah.
it depends. It depends. Like last night was kind of a late night because of phone calls and whatnot, because everybody's awake in the States.
Yeah.
And I'm with you this morning. So let's go.
That's awesome. Great way to
Just gotta
start
make
the
it
day.
happen.
Great way for me to end the day. So for those that don't know you, why don't you just I don't know, where'd you grow up?
So I am originally from Boston, Massachusetts. And I say Boston because most people, when you say, "Oh, I'm from Massachusetts in the very dead center," they're like, "I don't know where that is." So I always say Boston. But those that are around Boston and know it, if you go about 45 minutes, an hour inland to the center of Massachusetts, that's where I grew up. Small lake, tiny town, little countryside place. It was amazing. And it was awesome. When I turned 18, it was go to work, go to school, or go join the military. So I looked at all the branches, and it just so happened my uncle was in the Coast Guard,
Oh,
and
cool.
he said, "Why don't you come down to Boston and hang out with me for a day?" And I was like, "That's cool. I get to skip school, and I get to go hang out with my uncle. That's awesome." So while I was out there, we ended up doing a whole bunch of like little jobs. Like I was following the marine science technicians and a couple other people like inspecting boats. And then all of a sudden I get on like a small boat, oh dude, you'll love this. It's like a 41 footer Coast Guard boat. I think they actually got it from the Navy. Don't quote me on that, but
Like, you got
I
the
think so.
straps.
Yeah, right. So we're driving through Boston Harbor, and if you're from there, it's Boston Harbor. Just throwing
Yeah.
that out there, right?
Yep.
But we're driving through the Boston Harbor, and we're seeing this boat that had sunk, and they're making notes and they're trying to figure out, okay, we're gonna get it out, and this is how we're gonna do it. I'm like, wow, this is kind of cool. Well, then we go back to the dock, and like an alarm goes off, the radio goes crazy, and they're like, you got to get off the boat. And I'm like, why? And they're like, we got a SAR case, and I'm like, a search and rescue case. They're like, yeah, get off the boat. And I'm like, I want to go, and they're like, no, get off. And I'm like, I'm doing this for the rest of my life. This is what I'm
Wow.
doing. And that's kind of what inspired me to join the Coast Guard, was that day in that moment.
Wow.
So
Do you
that was
think if
cool.
you went in today though, would you still do it, or you think you'd go straight for the Space Force?
Is there a rescue in Space Force? I don't know.
Do a 10 and 10 off the shuttle out in space?
Yeah, right. I think if I, knowing what I know now, ooh man, that's a good question. I would love to go Coast Guard rescue swimmer again if I were to
Mhm.
do it all over again. The other option that I would do, and it's only because I've hung out with quite a few of them, is Air Force pararescue.
Mhm. Yeah.
And because of the mindset is all the same.
Yeah.
The difference between our trainings is they're going to CSAR, the combat search and rescue,
Yep.
versus just the civilian. But working with the civilian population is pretty fun
Yeah.
because
Is that cool?
it's like an everyday occurrence
Mhm.
versus like a PJ or like you only go in on occasion. You're like, oh, okay, I
Yeah,
got to
yeah.
deploy now, and then you're done. Then you don't do it. So
Yeah, you
anyway,
guys get a lot of action, that's for sure.
oh my God, somebody's flying every day to save somebody. It's
Yeah,
crazy. Whether it's a
yeah.
medevac, whether it's just oh, let me help this person here. Like, and the stories like you get all these stories, you're like, I can't make this stuff up. It's awesome. It's awesome.
Yeah, it really is. And yeah, like people always wonder like, okay, what's the difference? And it really is. It's like Coast Guard rescue swimmers, PJs, which is more on the CSAR end of it, and then the
Yep.
Navy's like everything in between. So for the Navy, we're deploying 6 months at a time, and we're doing everything the helicopter could potentially doing from, bringing the chaplain on a Sunday to a small boy or something, lowering them down, or in medevacs off a submarine. And you might get a couple rescues in your career, but you get a ton of medevacs, and you do just a lot of different cool things. So they're all amazing. And I'm with you though. I would love to do all of them. Like it'd be cool to do like
Oh,
a
right.
5 year stint, like in all of them.
Oh, that would be badass. I would totally do that.
Hmm.
Yeah, I would absolutely do that because it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Like each job has so much fun. Like, where do they pay you to go fly around in helicopters? Like, and for us, jump out of them.
Yeah, I'll take it. Anyone who's not that much of a thrill seeker would see that and
Yeah.
just be like, "Heck no, you're not paying me.
Right,
You're
right.
paying me a lot." Well, they paid us $100 a month to do it.
Yeah.
I was in at least.
There, yeah,
So you,
there's your hazard duty pay.
yeah, exactly. So you went through in you said 99.
Yeah, I started A school. You guys call it A school, right?
Hmm.
Okay. So I started A school in 99, and I graduated March of 2000. Class 1000. We had we started with 8 guys. We graduated with 7. And one of the cool and unique sides about our class in particular is that the guy that did not make it, he made it through first phase, which was 4 weeks at the time. Uh, couldn't pass his life-saving drills. Ended up going to like the gym or rec or whatever he did. And
Hmm.
about 6 months later, they called him and said, "Hey, you want to try again?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he made it.
Awesome.
So all 8 of us that went through swimmer school made it,
Wow, that's
which
so
is a
unusual.
rarity.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, big time. Now,
that's
unfortunately, we didn't make it all at the same time, but 7 of us graduated
yeah, yeah, yeah.
in
But still.
2000. And, yeah,
That's
and we
that's
had
wild. Like there's a high attrition rate, in all
yeah.
of our training. What was different about U8?
I don't know, actually. It
Yeah.
was we when we I take that back. You know what? Most of us were older going into our training. Most of us were over 21. We were between 21 and 25 or 26.
Okay.
So
So
a
a lot of
lot
life
of us had
experience.
already, yeah, a lot of us had already been through something, had gone through some other trainings. Let's see, we had one prior Marine, one prior Army.
Mm.
Um, let's see, I had already been in the Coast Guard for like 2.5 years, and then the other guys that were just I mean, they lived life prior to
Yeah.
coming into the Coast Guard, and some of them had a little bit of college,
Yeah.
so it was yeah. And then we just thrived off each other, like we always were trying to build each other up. So, I mean, you talk about it quite a bit. It's like the mindset. That was us. Like
Mm.
we would just we would all right, so here's an example is uh Pat Roach was one of my classmates, and him and I were the two fastest runners in the class. And there's a in particular sprint that like the 2.5 mile run that we would have to do.
Mhm.
And we would get this headwind that would just suck. It would come off the river, and him and I would piggyback off each other. And so we
Mhm.
would
Drafting.
run, yeah, because so one of us could get a break and then one of us would take the lead. And
Yeah,
it
that's
was
teamwork.
really only, yeah, but it was only to keep our time so we didn't have to do push-ups later.
Oh yeah. There's always some incentive, some hidden
Right?
incentive.
Yeah. But it was, I mean, it was great because that's how our class worked. At the end of every workout, and I say workout, at the end of every torture day, like
Yeah.
we would bring it in, everybody would put their hands in and be like, get some. And then we'd
Mm,
go away and do our part of our or the rest of our day. So
yeah.
we were a
What was the
pretty tight
hardest part
class.
of training for you?
Oh gosh. I the hardest part we had probably the parachute disentanglement.
Yeah, that's fun.
Oh my gosh. So we're in the pool and the instructor had taken the parachute and did a half hitch around his ankle.
Mm,
So they were, I mean, and for those that have never heard anything about parachute disentanglement, what it is you have a large parachute of a downed aviator and you have to get the parachute off. All the lines, imagine it go around. So you need to pop off the oxygen mask and see if I still know this. All right,
yeah, let's
Ryan.
go. Do
All right, ready?
it.
So you clear the oxygen mask, so you pop that off the helmet, you do a neck check and make sure there's no lines there. Then you're doing your arms, then you're doing your chest, and then you come down to the waist and you come down to the legs. And what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to go underwater and
Yeah,
jam their ass right
final
on your
highway.
head. Right?
Yeah, it's
Exactly.
pretty dumb, huh?
And then it totally is. Your head is in their ass. I mean, like, it's the weirdest thing to say. And you're like, really? Okay, whatever.
Yeah.
But when my instructor had done that, he had half hitched it around his ankle. So now when I'm down, I get one leg clear, but the other leg was so hard for this in particular day because I would do my deep breath, I'd go under, and I'm clearing it, but I literally have to pull the parachute up, but I can't. I have to stop kicking because that's the only way I have enough slack to undo
Oh, 'cause it's
the
screaming
half hitch.
anchor.
Right. But they would yell at me for stopping to kick. But if I keep kicking, then I keep putting the tension back on the line. I can't literally untie the parachute from him.
Yeah.
And it took me without exaggeration like 15 minutes. And then they're yelling at me because I'm running out of time. And the fake helicopter is going to leave me on scene with the dude
Yeah,
with the
it's a
parachute.
bingo.
I'm like, oh my God. So that in particular day was probably the hardest one that I can think of. So,
Yeah. Well, they'll do that, right? And it's just to see how you
right.
respond to it. And, you can imagine like if you're an instructor, what kind of stuff would you do? You put that hitch around their neck or something.
Yeah. Yeah. See
Yeah,
what you do.
it's changed quite a bit, with like the water jujitsu and life saving, go under anymore and wearing helmets and yeah, you don't do the spinal highway. Everything's just on. I mean, it's all for the better. I mean, everything
Yeah.
works, so I get it. The reason that they did it. I mean, I'm so buoyant that if I was to dive under, I can't dive under. My fins are like, kicking, especially if I have a full wetsuit on. And when I went through
Yeah.
to get a waiver because I was so small, because I didn't gain any weight yet. I was just tiny, and then filled out later. When they size your wetsuit during the training, and then you get out to the fleet, and it doesn't fit anymore.
That's
Yeah.
so funny.
Did you have the
Uh,
the old harness too, just the upper body, or did you have the trisar?
no, well, I was in Trisar,
Oh man.
which is made by LSC, an amazing harness. I absolutely loved it. One of the changes that they had made later was just all our gear was on the chest, and when
Hmm.
you would lean forward over patients, it would end up smacking them in the face. Now you got like a PRC 90, the old school brick radio,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden, like as you're moving back and forth, you're whacking people in the face, and they're like, ah, ah, ah.
Yeah, it's not good.
So
It's caused more
they
panic.
yeah, so they ended up changing a little bit more, make it a little more streamlined. But I really enjoyed that harness, and I truly believe that uh, like my generation of swimmers, our back got saved because of that. All the
Oh
generations
yeah.
before me were using the LR. Oh shoot!
HB11.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah,
glad
that's
you
what I
said
had.
it.
It was
Yeah,
all upper body.
all
Yeah,
upper, and
so bad.
you're under like yeah like kind of a strap where
Yeah.
you're hanging, and so if you get jerked by the hoist, if you get popped out of the water, it's literally like pulling your
Oh yeah.
back apart.
Well, and then if you
Yeah.
have a survivor, like a 250-pound wet survivor
Yeah.
attached to you, it's just I couldn't breathe half the time going up. I'd like be doing like a
Yeah.
pull-up, like
Yeah.
spinning
Yeah.
up, and yeah, it was a good time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Live and
No,
learn.
I'm
That makes us
very,
OG.
very thankful. Yeah, right. No, I'm very thankful with the gear and equipment, and not only that, like the Coast Guard swimmers, but I would say around the world and
Yeah.
how they progress and what people are using today for harnesses and, like you said, helmets. It's incredible. I
Yeah.
love the gear today. I think it's yeah leaps and bounds. It's
Oh yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. We rip on it now because we're jealous.
Of course.
Because our backs are all jacked up.
Yeah.
You're right,
Right.
man. I don't know anybody with, that was in the era of, pre-Trisar that doesn't have some sort of back injury. So
Yeah.
it's unfortunate,
Yeah.
but no one would
Yeah.
change a thing. So, it's like
Nope.
you
Nope.
earned it type thing.
Yeah. You earned it. That's exactly it. I earned
So,
every battle scar in there.
totally. So after SAR school, where did you go?
My first duty station when I graduated was Kodiak, Alaska. I did three
That pretty
years up
common. It
there.
seems like a lot of people head up that way.
I think I think it's a sought after place. There,
Mm.
Alaska is like there's big SAR up
Yeah,
there
yeah.
and big waves. It's just gnarly. Long flights, especially out of Kodiak, because Kodiak you could be like I had both where I get called at home and say, hey, we need you to jump on the C-130 and fly out to such and such an island to take the helicopter, go do the rescue, and then you're going to come home the next day. And
Wow.
I've been the other guy where you've taken the helicopter all the way out and it takes you 7 hours to get there. You land and then you're done
Mm.
because you hit your max flight time. So like
Yeah.
it's just cool. Some guys I'm not going to speak for everybody because some guys never wanted to leave the South. They never wanted to leave warm water. But
Hmm.
yeah, I got lucky. I'll call it that and got to go to
Hmm.
Kodiak. It was a
Yeah, that would be
blast. I
cool.
loved it. Yeah.
Yep. And
So
just such a big area to cover, and just every type of scenario you can think of, and just
yeah.
worst case scenarios too. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
there's no good days.
No, no. And you know what? Here's the other part that I'll say about that. Like, we're the Coast Guard station because obviously we're all in the U.S. and we have bases around the U.S. But North Carolina does not get enough credit,
Mhm.
and nor does Cape Cod. Like, they see and get some gnarly stuff out there,
Yeah,
like off that coast. But Kodiak, the majority of people you hear stuff Kodiak and Sitka because it's just the waves in the Bering Sea. They're stupid.
yeah,
Like, yeah. And
yeah.
you can get hurricane force winds, like Cat 2 winds, but sustained. It's a Wednesday up there. Like, you're like, what?
Right. It's like trash day.
Yeah, right.
That's where I live
So
right now. Like it's trash day because it's high winds. I live in the Pacific Northwest, and everyone's trash will be like everyone's like strap it down. Um, did you were
uh,
you in Astoria? Did you ever do the advanced SAR training?
I did. I went to Astoria for the advanced school twice.
Oh wow.
Once out of Kodiak and then once out of Humboldt Bay when I was in Humboldt.
Right on.
Loved it. I would love to go now, as funny as that sounds, because they've upgraded the training so much, especially with like the urban search and rescue and how
Mm.
they're rescuing people out of buildings and stuff.
Oh,
It's
neat.
impressive. Like, yeah. So
That's
I'd love to
cool.
go now.
Yeah, me too. How do you think you do?
All right.
You pretty fit?
Yeah. Yeah, I
I
think
know.
I can hang. Yeah.
Okay. Well, if
Yeah.
you can, I can.
Okay. Okay. Here. Okay. Ready? I
Yeah.
think I would be a little slower than some of the guys in now. Okay.
Yeah. But
But,
wiser.
but, yeah. But I can hang. That's
Okay.
is
Yeah.
I man. You know what they call the last guy that graduates out of doctor school? Doctor.
Doctor.
We would make it.
Yeah.
We
Oh, yeah.
might be last, but we would make it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. If we had to play prison rules, whatever, man, we would.
Yeah, it came on.
Well,
Oh, that's funny.
that's amazing. So, do you want to? I know you have a lot of different rescue experiences. Do you have one or two you want to just go into some details and just tell our listeners how cool
Yeah.
you
Thank you. I appreciate. Yeah, yeah. So I'll throw a couple things out there. So I had I've actually talked about this on the Real ResQ podcast in some of them in very fine detail. My very first rescue uh, was awesome, and I had a great crew, which was really a good thing. But it was a medevac guy going in and out of consciousness on the boat. Every time he went out of consciousness, he would stop breathing. So they were like, we got to get him off. They were in 20-foot seas. They're at least 10 hours from land. So he was going to die on the boat if we didn't get out there. So that earned our entire crew an air medal, which was
Oh,
for me, I was like, okay. But my
mhm.
favorite part about that whole rescue, and that's episode 1 of the Real ResQ, by the way. I'm just like,
Yeah,
that's how
I'll
I
plug
started
it.
that podcast. Yeah,
I'll
right.
put a link.
So, but that in particular rescue, I remember like you graduate swimmer school and then you're at your duty station. You finally get qualified because you have to go through all the steps to get
Mm.
qualified after that. And it's like, cool, I'm standing duty. This is like my second day of duty ever,
Wow,
right?
that's wild.
And I'm sitting in the edge of the helicopter. Hoist hook is connected to the harness, and my flight mechanic leans over and he goes, "Are you scared?" And I looked at him, I was like, "No." He's like, "You should be." And then he starts lowering me down. I'm like, "What the?"
That's awesome.
Oh, it was great. So that was my first experience, and then from there, I legitimately thought that all of them were going to be like that, and then
Mhm.
like my next like 2 or 3 were very kind of nonchalant. Like the next one was literally a search, and we
Mhm.
searched for an entire bag of
Oh yeah,
gas,
yeah.
didn't find
Easy
anything,
search.
and go home. And you're like, oh my gosh, okay. And they're like, yeah, these are the normal. Like,
And that's so
okay,
deflating, right? I know I got
right,
launched on my first deployment because a Mexican like major airliner went down, and it's tough because it's emotionally taxing. You're searching and searching, and then you don't know the outcome. You know, a lot of times you get called off and go back, you debrief, and you wonder, all the different things that go through your head, like did I miss something, or
yeah,
or was it a false launch, too. I don't know. I don't know about nowadays, but back in the day, they definitely didn't
yeah, yeah, yeah,
close the loop on it. So,
right. Yeah. No, it's so much fun. Well, and like I mentioned earlier, like we deal like we as in the Coast Guard. The Coast Guard deals with so much of just civilian population.
mhm.
Um, Here's another one. I don't know if I've ever talked about this one. So this is kind of like the maybe third or fourth rescue that I had been on. So we get launched out on a guy that had him and his buddy were living on an island, like on in a house they built in the middle of nowhere of Alaska.
Wow. Okay.
And we
Probably
get
isn't
out
that
there.
uncommon.
Yeah, I don't think it is actually, because I legitimately think they were fishermen, and then they just built this place, whatever. But we end up landing on the beach, and it was actually the first time I'd ever done this too. It was so we land on the beach, and have you landed on the beach? Like have you done that? Landed a
On the
helicopter on
sand?
the beach? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty cut and dry, right? You just land. Well, we're on this like embankment. Like it's actually kind of a steep grade. Well, the
Hmm.
first thing they tell you when you start going through your basic stuff is like, hey, you will leave at 3 and 9 o'clock from the aircraft at all times.
Yeah.
Well, this in particular day, like we land and the rotor arc is like going down, like the beach is coming up, but the rotor arc's going this
Oh
way.
yeah.
Well,
Not much
the
room,
only
huh?
way to actually leave safely is at 12 o'clock.
Mhm.
But they don't tell you these little like things. You got to learn it. So next thing,
Yeah.
my dumbass, new swimmer, like I'm like crawling under the beach, like under the rotorhead, and I'm exaggerating with the crawling, but I am like way
Yeah.
down trying to get out from underneath the rotorhead. I'm like, what the heck is this? And they're like, no, come in at 12 o'clock. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, well that makes actual sense, but at no point in time was it ever briefed. It was like, you will always. That's the only
Oh yeah.
downside about like military. It's like, you will always do this. And you're like,
Mhm.
no, you will not always do that.
No, common
You will
sense.
have, yes. So he had fallen out of his barn, like fallen from floor 2 to floor 1. And
Oh,
he got busted up bad, and he's laying there, and he's like, and he's all complaining. It's like, man, this hurts and that hurts, and I'm like, okay, all right, dude. And I'm looking at him, and I'm kind of standard ABC. I'm doing a little bit of trauma assessment. I'm like, all right, you fell, but you walked from the barn, which is easily 200 yards to the
mm,
house. And I'm like, well, can you still walk, or do you want me to get something? He's like, nah, man, I can still walk. Like crusty fishermen, like
yeah.
the tough guys. He's like, yeah, I can walk. He stands there, he's like, oh. I was like, well, do you want me to help you? He's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. So he throws his arm around me. I've got his arm around him, and I'm walking him to the helicopter. And they kind of look at me funny in the helicopter. I sit him down in the troop seat. He's like, oh, this is really hard. I was like, oh, take my seat. It's a little cushier. It's more comfortable.
There you go.
He's like off. He's like leaning to one side. Come to find out, he had like, without exaggeration, 7 broken bones. And I'm having him walk to the helicopter like the worst EMT. I got like, oh, dumbass. I should have had a litter out. I should have had him laid down. And yeah, the things you learn. So
Yeah. Yeah. So you never told that
oops.
story.
No, I haven't told that one
You
yet. So
have
you
now.
get to hear that one first.
Yeah. That's how you learn, right? Like I always
Yep.
tell people, like
Yep.
our advanced medical training was basically to keep them alive until we got them to someone who had a clue what they were doing. And
Nice.
like you're
Perfect.
saying with that medevac, that was a long flight and coming in and out of consciousness. And I had a similar one. And same thing. It's just you're monitoring them. It's a tight, fit in the helicopter. Were you in a Dauphine or like what were you in?
Both. Kodiak, Alaska is at 860, and then the Dolphin was down in
Yeah.
Humboldt Bay, California.
Yeah. So we were 60s, and you try to fit people in there and checking their vitals and everything when you just got this, it's so just the vibrations are just insanity, the sound. So you're doing your best, and sometimes they live and it's great.
Yep. And sometimes they don't.
And
Such
that's,
is life.
yeah.
Yep. Yep.
So no, thanks for sharing those. That's
Oh, my
that's awesome.
pleasure.
And what's that?
My pleasure.
Oh, I
Hey, I go all day, Brian. Like this.
No,
I
well,
love
you
talking this
could.
stuff.
You have all day, but
You
it's my
don't.
night, so I'm not. we'll, we'll we'll have you on again and have some other conversations. But let's unpack like just the two that you were talking about. Like even that first one, it's like your second real mission set you're launching is green. When you're that green, sometimes that works in your favor. Like, because you're brand new, you don't really know what to think. You're pumped. You're so trained. You just want to, do your thing. Do you remember like what was going through your head as you were actually lowering down to that boat?
I do. Actually, that rescue actually stands out to me pretty vividly. One of the things that I remember going down is like, this is what we trained for. And I remember being so excited about it. And still today, like I'm all jazzed up because I'm like, let's go. I want to go do this again
Yeah.
because your adrenaline is through the roof. And everything all the scenarios that you run through your head based on your basic like A school training. So you just made it through this badass training, and now you're on scene and 20-foot waves in this 150-foot boat. And this dude, he's counting on you to save his life. And that's the stuff that's going through my head.
Yeah.
I get down to the boat. Actually, as a Navy guy, you're going to really like the last part of the story because, actually,
Okay.
spoiler alert, ready? By like 30, 40 minutes on the boat, I'm starting to get seasick.
Oh, I get
I was
seasick
like, oh, it's terrible. This sucks. But
too.
while I'm on deck, my overall mindset was I need to take full control of the situation. Here I am, like 22 years old. All these fishermen have been fishing for years, and I'm like, I need you to do this and you to do this, and like select and direct. And they were awesome. They were
Yeah.
they're like, yeah, whatever you need, dude, whatever you need. And
Yeah. They know, they see you. It's
yeah,
positional authority.
yeah, I
Yeah.
got you.
If you come in,
Yeah,
but
but
you're kind of if you didn't have that attitude, then you wouldn't have made it through SAR school because so much of
no,
it's
definitely
crowd
not.
control and authoritative, authority.
Yeah, yeah. but that was it. It was like just pure adrenaline and excitement. And I was just pumped. I was
Yeah,
so pumped. Yeah.
that's
The end
neat.
of it, when
And
I was starting to get seasick, I remember them coming on the radio like, hey, we might need to leave our swimmer. We're running low on fuel. I'm like, please don't leave me.
right.
Uh,
No, it's interesting because you're super pumped, and when people have, when you know what the body goes through when you have an adrenaline spike, if you're unable to channel that in a positive way, you would be unable to affect the rescue. And I think that's a lot of what we learn, and that's, the whole calm in the chaos. I didn't know what else to call the book. But that's essentially
Great
it.
name, by the way. Great name.
Thanks. Total
Yeah.
chaos. You are super pumped, but you're calm. You're taking control of the situation, and you affected the rescue, and you got that person out of there.
Yep.
Did you put
Yep.
him in a litter, or did you just
I
hoist him
did.
up?
Yeah. Nope. I got him in a litter, and it was only because of like the in and out of consciousness. And I knew,
Mhm.
like, I had a flight doc that was up in the helicopter.
Oh,
She didn't.
that's nice.
Yeah, it was until she got airsick, and then she was worthless for the rest
Not
of the
so
flight.
nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she was literally like crawled up on the troop seat. She's like,
Dude, there's
and
no
I,
recovery either, man. When you're
no,
sick, seasick or
yeah,
flight sick, it's
done.
oh. So
But yeah, I know I put him in a litter just because a couple other things that really stand out to me from that rescue are things that like, again, it's not in the training. So trail line, do you guys call them a trail line in the Navy?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, so the trail line, half of it had fallen out of the aircraft, like the bundle had fallen out and
Hmm.
blew back and got caught on the tailwheel landing gear.
Oh my gosh,
So,
that's scary.
and I remember, yeah, now imagine like I'm a green swimmer. I remember looking up at the aircraft like, man, I've never seen that happen. And
Hey,
now
right?
it's stuck on the tail landing gear. Like, well, that sucks. Like, and I see Dave Austin was my flight mechanic, and he's pulling it in, he's cutting it, and he cut one half, and I see it kind of drop, and I'm hanging on. I'm like, what the hell are they doing? Well,
Hmm.
then he cuts the other side, and the bundle falls off the landing gear, and then just goes into the sea. So I call up. I'm like, hey guys, the trail line's gone. It fell off the tail wheel landing gear. You're clear. Cheap. That was it. What I didn't know at the time is that they were like their senses were way elevated because now
Oh
they've
yeah.
got a tagline outside the aircraft. And again, my green, I didn't think about this.
Yeah, yeah, you're
Oh,
not
they're
thinking
blowing up
wrapping
into
in
the
the tail
tail
rotor.
rotor.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like, oh, that aircraft's coming out of the sky. And
Yep.
like I'm clueless. Like I look at it now, I'd be like, hey, I'd be on the radio much faster today.
Yeah. Or hoist me
So
back up and I'll
yeah,
unravel that for you.
yeah, stuff like that. So, and then the other thing that stands out to me is that because we're in such big waves, when we would come up to the top of the wave, Dave would take out a bunch of the slack. Well, he wasn't quite in position, so we go back down into the trough. He's letting the slack out, and he's trying to time it so as soon as we get to the bottom of the trough, he's going to
Hmm.
start bringing the slack up and just keep him off the boat. And then once we get to the top, boom, he keeps going.
Yeah.
Well, what happens is we get to the trough, the litter comes about 5 feet off. So it's about eye level with me, and I'm holding on to the litter. But then he stops because the helicopter moves. So then the boat comes up and hits the bottom of the litter.
Oh gosh.
Wham! The dude in the litter is like, "Ooh." And I'm like, I
Yeah.
got you, dude. Cable's now starting to like land on his chest, and I'm like, oh my God. I'm like,
Yeah.
everybody steer clear, hold that tagline, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden it was like boing, and he's gone. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, holy shit, that didn't happen in training either. What the?
So he went up
So
without the trail line. You didn't hoist up
no,
with.
no, the trail line was still attacked. We carry three in the aircraft.
Oh,
But
okay.
so
Gotcha.
one of them got lost, got ditched, and then the other one was with me down on deck. And but I mean, it's ripping through my hands, like just burning my gloves and my
Yeah.
hands. I'm like, holy cow! So yeah, I was on adrenaline rush for like a week after that case. It was awesome.
Yeah. Have you, through some of the cases that you've had that can be, pretty traumatic when you look back at them, when you're in the moment, you're focused, you're doing your thing, you're saving lives. And it's not until you get back when you come down from that high and you're alone and, you get the shakes or, sometimes nightmares, or just it depends on the situation. Have you had those
Yep.
experiences?
I have. And one of the great parts about now is that, and I try to emphasize it a lot to a lot of people, is that those are signs and symptoms of almost PTSD type thing. It's
Mhm.
like if you get that, you need to start talking to people. You need to
Yeah.
start talking to people. Hey, this is what's going on with me right now. My biggest rescue that I had, and I'll plug this one in, episode 100 in my podcast. Hey,
Nice. One in
okay.
100. You heard it.
Yeah, thank you. Hey, I
Stop
appreciate that,
listening to
dude.
this right now and
Yeah,
go to the Real Rescue.
I love you. There's a heart for you, buddy. Um, but anyway, so I would tell people, like, when you start feeling that, immediately just
Mhm.
go to the boys in the shop, go to your friends, and just be like, man, this is what's going on with me. Because I remember after that big rescue, I was
Yeah.
standing in the shower and I'm like crying. I'm
Yeah.
like, why am I crying? I don't get it. But
Yeah.
that adrenaline dump and that whole scenario was like just like
Yeah.
I don't get
No,
it.
that's good. That's
So
good. Good
yeah, yeah.
advice. Um, in the Coast Guard, like when you were in, did they encourage talking about,
Oh yeah.
trauma? And yeah,
Yep.
that's
Yeah.
cool.
More so in Alaska than when I
Hmm.
get down into Humboldt, which is I can't explain why. I don't know if it was just command thing. I don't know if it
Yeah.
was like um, they it was I could equate it to, at that time I was second class or first class, so I had advanced. And like so I was an older swimmer. Like I
Mm.
had already had a whole bunch of big rescues and stuff, so I knew stuff. So I there was another rescue that I had done in and I say rescue, this one was more of a tragedy, but uh two people got swept out on the coastline of the beach in at Humboldt, and I end up going down. I grabbed the girl out of the surf, and I get her up to the beach, and I mean she's gone.
Mm.
But I vividly remember her face. And
Yeah.
there was a little girl out in the water that we couldn't find. The second helicopter came out. They found her, or the boat found her. They picked her up off the boat. We're in the hospital. She passed away.
Yeah, that's
And
horrible.
that was we got back, and both crews, and they were like, "You guys good?" And I remember sitting there like, "Yeah, I think so. I mean, it sucks,
Yeah, yeah,
whatever." And then I'm driving to my house starting to cry.
yeah.
But it was never spoken about again,
Yeah.
ever. And it was the weirdest thing. Like Kodiak, we would have had multiple conversations about it. Humboldt Bay, for whatever reason, it was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
No, they said they were good. So
Yeah,
it was,
it's in, well, I guess in our time it was probably inconsistent. I know that they're doing a lot better nowadays. There's just more
yeah,
awareness, and just you
yeah,
can be a much stronger operator if you're mentally, emotionally strong, and you don't become strong if you're dealing with trauma, or not dealing with trauma,
yeah, yeah, man.
because every flight is a traumatic situation. You just never know what you're getting into, and
Right.
you have to deal with that stuff. And yeah, just talking, journaling, whatever
Yep.
it takes.
Well, there's so many of us. You have to go through so many steps, right? So you start with you as a helicopter crewman in the back, running radios or doing this or doing that, whatever you have to do for your aviator job.
Mhm.
Well, then you go into rescue swimmer job or rescue whatever job, and now you're a rescue guy. So you got to get people out of harm's way. Then you go back into the helicopter, and then you got to put another hat on, which is your medical side, to
Right.
help save sustained life until you get back. But while you're doing that, you also have to do your aviator job. It's
Yeah.
wild. Like,
Yeah.
and I don't think that enough people get, or I don't think we get enough credit for all the different roles you have to play throughout one rescue. Let's
Yeah,
say
I
two
know.
hours.
Yeah,
You're
it's
like,
it's wild. There's a lot involved, and
yeah,
that's why it takes a couple years to go through the training. And you're not
yeah.
through each evolution, you're not done, because there's so many levels to it, so many layers. Well, cool. Well, thank you for sharing that. I know, so I always say, being a rescue swimmer is the ultimate form of serving others. The job, you're giving up your life potentially to save someone who's trying to kill you because they're panicked or shocked. But a lot of that, when you get out, it transfers into our normal lives. It's who we are. And I know you're doing a lot of cool things in your life, but as far as just opportunity to serve others, like what examples do you have in your normal life now that you're an old man?
Hey, be
Yeah.
careful with that old man thing. Bro, I'll come kick your ass right now.
Let's go.
I'm sorry. I digress.
No, no.
What in the normal life, what I see is that like I still love extreme sports because and when I say that, like, barefooting, downhill skiing, snowboarding, rappelling off waterfalls. It's
Mhm.
like I'm hiking up mountains and stuff, and like I want that. I enjoy that. I still enjoy the adrenaline rush. I enjoy swimming in the ocean. Just that, I just enjoy that stuff. So
Yeah.
that's a part of it that I want. I want that extreme side. And then the other side of it is like you see people in need and you still go help. It's
Right.
almost instinctually now. It's wild. And I'll get, oh my gosh, I've never talked about this one either. This is kind of fun.
Nice.
This happened to me like 2 months ago.
You
So
know what you should do?
I
Pause on
yeah.
that. On your next episode, you should say, there's some amazing stuff that I've never told before. Stop listening to your podcast and go listen to Calm in the Chaos.
Oh, I'm totally going to. I'm dropping this. Oh,
Sweet.
have no illusion, dude. I'm gonna be dropping this left and right when this comes out. I'm so excited right now. uh,
That's awesome.
uh,
All right, Amy, go ahead.
that's it. All right. So my wife and I, my wife, my mother-in-law, and I are up in um, Germany, and this is like over just before Christmas. We're going through the Christmas markets, and as we're walking through, we hear like a somebody fall, and it was a clear thud, and
Hmm.
I'm like, oh, so we look, and I see people around, and I looked at both my mother-in-law and my wife, and I'm like, let me just go walk over, let me just check. Sure enough, I walk over there, and she's got a little blood on her forehead from the fall itself, and I'm like, are you okay? And I'm looking around like, hey, I'm a medic, I don't have any stuff, but what can I help? And they're like, and everybody's like, yeah, we have no idea what we're doing. I'm like, oh, okay.
Hmm.
I'm like, somebody had brought over a chair, and as I'm talking to her, she had very little English, but I'm like, are you okay? Hello, my name's Jason. I'm here to help you. We have people, and I'm looking around like, I need you to go call 911. I think it's 999 over there. Go call an ambulance, get police over here. Like, I'm already instructing people to where to
Hmm.
go. She like passes out in my arms in front of me. I'm like, whoa. I'm like lowering her down to the chair. And then I'm like touching her face. I'm like, stay with me, stay with me. So it went from she passed out, she's got a little blood on her head, to holy shit, she might be having a heart attack right now. I might be doing CPR here in about 30
Yeah.
seconds. She came back and she's talking to me. Her husband's talking to me. I'm like, you need to stay with me. Just keep breathing, stay with me. And then the medics showed up. I'm like, you guys got it? They dropped their bags. I'm like, cool, I'm out. So it never stops. To back up
Wow.
to your question, it doesn't ever stop. Like
Yeah.
this is not something we just unplug from. So it's, you see a car crash, you stop. It's the mentality of what we do. So
Yep.
that's
Yeah.
cool.
That's great to hear, and it's so true. Like everyone I have had on so far, just kind of asked that question. It's the same thing. I remember I was on a work trip. I was covering Amazon, the company Amazon. So I was going to Texas from Seattle. As soon as we took off, Alaska airline, um, the ding came on. Is there a doctor on board? And I'm just sitting there. I'm like, I'm not a doctor. No one's stepping up. So I'm like, oh. So I pressed the button, and because if there's a real doctor, then you want the doctor to do it. But yeah, I
Yeah.
got up, and someone had stood up, fell straight down, just passed out. So next thing, I have oxygen on him, checking vitals. I'm patched down to an actual doctor, and he's fine. He probably drank too much the night before. I don't know what the situation was, but got him there. I look up, and the person from Amazon is sitting right there looking down at me. He's like Russian. He's like, "You are a doctor?" Like, it's like, no, the doctor didn't step forward. And then Alaska Airlines like gave me, I forget, it was like 50,000 miles or something. Like it
Oh my
surprised
God,
me
that's
like a month
amazing.
later. came through like, oh my gosh, you never expect anything in return, but I'll take it.
Yeah, heck yeah. Yeah, a little high five. That's like getting an award ceremony. 50,000 miles.
Yep.
Congratulations.
Yep. That all you got? Like, it should not be like
Oh
first
God.
class forever. No,
Yeah.
no,
Oh, that's
that,
funny.
all
That's
right.
awesome, man.
Yeah, that's just random stuff. But yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
It's right place, right time, wrong place, right time, right,
Yeah.
however that goes. Um,
Yeah, a little bit of both.
yeah, and it's a matter of stepping forward. So
Yeah.
many people step back, they hesitate. These situations are awkward because you don't
Yeah.
know what you're getting into. And there are a lot of people that mean well, but just because you mean well doesn't know what you're doing, and you can cause a lot of harm. So never
Right. Right.
assume that just because someone is authoritative, they just might be a extrovert or in shock themselves, or whatever the scenario. And you're right, like what you had said. You're saying you go do this, this, and this. When there's someone who's like kind of getting in the way, you give them some busy work
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you're not helping, even though you mean well. Really
Right.
appreciate that, but I need you to look at your watch and every 30 seconds tell me it's been 30 seconds, or something
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
oh, thanks.
Right. I need you to give me the 2 minute mark to make sure we're checking the pulse.
There you
Hey, I
go.
need you to hold their head. Just hold their head still right now. This is what I need you to do. Hey,
Yep.
I need a blanket. Can you go get me a blanket, like a
Yep.
jacket or something? Can you find something to cover her up? Yeah. Okay.
Yep. I can't do
Ah.
chest compressions if I don't have a back massage. Can you take care of that
Yeah.
for me?
You know what? I'll try that next time. I'll let you know.
All right. So this
Uh,
is the fun part. Okay. So we'll get out of
okay.
the serious mode and have a little fun.
That was a serious mode. That was
I know,
great. Thank
right?
you.
We're so serious. A 1 minute hypothetical scenario. All right. We're going to get
Okay.
into the mindset of a Coast Guard rescue swimmer. Are you guys
Love
called
it.
helicopter rescue swimmers still?
Yes. Yep.
Man,
Sure
at
are.
least you guys are consistent. When I was in, it was helicopter rescue swimmer. Before it was like wet crewman, SAR crewman, air rescue, and now it's aviation rescue swimmer. I don't know.
Uh, okay. Yeah. All right. So actually, this is kind of a funny thing that I do. Like now that you mentioned that, is like, right, the guy that wiggles the sticks up front. We call him. What do we call him?
Pilot.
Pilot. Well done. That was a trick question. Okay, pilot. Right.
Yeah.
The guy in the back. What do you call him? There's
Ooh.
about 1,000 different names across the world. Crew chief, flight mech, rescue swimmer, rescue tech, winch op, winch min. Oh my gosh, the list goes on. You're like, holy cow! Can we get one name, please? Just one.
I know. Yeah, I think SAR crewman seems to be, or SAR swimmer,
Oh, that's great. Yeah, yeah.
just stick to that. Yeah, I was just on the Academy podcast, Naval Academy podcast this weekend. And yeah, he's like, I thought it was all just SAR crewmen. I'm like, that works.
Yeah,
Let's
that
go
would
with
be
that.
great. It's not.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
1 minute hypothetical. Let's see what
Okay.
ChatGPT has for you. Let's
Oh,
see.
that's
Okay.
fun.
This is a fun one. Okay. Submerged vehicle recovery. So I'm going to give you the information. You're going to launch. You're the swimmer. Just tell me what's going through your mindset as you're heading into this. And this is the limited information. Okay. Ready?
Yes.
A military vehicle falls off a bridge into a deep river during a convoy. Crew members are trapped inside, and strong currents hinder rescue efforts. You're
Okay.
launching. That's all the information you have.
Perfect. So the first thing I want to do is I want to get it on scene. I want to get well, okay, let's back up a little bit. First of all, the question is going to be how long did we get on scene? Is they submerged or not submerged? So once we get on
Submerged.
scene, we'll do a circle. If they're all the way underwater and they've been under for quite a while, it's probably going to be like they've probably deceased, and we're just going to do recovery now.
They all have heats bottles.
Oh, they have heats bottles. So they
They
have
always
five
drive with
minutes of
heats,
spare
right?
air. That's awesome. All right. And it only took us 3 minutes to get there. That's fantastic. If they're in the this is there's a lot of different scenarios here. So the first one is uh, because you're in a river, you've come off a bridge, is how much it, like if I'm going to go down, is the vest or is the vehicle still like somewhat above the water? Is it deep in the water? So, because a lot of it, if like for Coast Guard wise, we don't have dive tanks. We're not going diving to
Yep.
people, so you're going to be on the surface.
Yep.
Um, that would be, and then you're once I get on scene, it would if you can lower me down to the boat. Sometimes I'd go upriver and come down. Sometimes I'd
Mm.
start downriver and come up. Depends on what's obstacles are there. But yeah, oh gosh, this is kind of a fun one because there are so many different
Mhm.
scenarios based on what you see on scene. So let's
Yeah.
start with this. Is the car completely submerged? Is it totally underwater?
I don't know. ChatGPT didn't tell me
Okay.
all that stuff. No, I mean, that's great. We can end that right there. I mean, the whole point is your mind, where it
Yeah.
went, because you're mapping out all these potential scenarios, because you're right, until you get on scene, you're actually seeing it, you have no idea. But you don't go
Yeah.
into it blind. You're already, okay, here's the first thing I got to check. And then if that's validated once you're hovering over, then you go to the next step, or you're reassessing, and as you get
Yeah.
down there, I think that's the thrill of our job, our past job, is you never know, but it's solving a problem, it's solving that puzzle, and you are completely equipped, as much as anyone can be equipped, to solve that problem. And any person in your job is equally equipped, because we're all trained the same. So you might have different
Yeah.
experiences and everything else, but for the most part, you're trained for that. It's curious because that kind of brought up a point of swiftwater rescue. Did you guys ever go
Yep.
through any of that training?
Oh yeah, yeah. I went through at least two courses. My favorite one was actually down in California. It was in Angel Church, something like that,
Mm,
California. Oh my gosh, it was amazing. What a wonderful class. And we go through that because we talk about how to walk with multiple people, creating V's in the river
hmm.
as you're trying to walk over, stringing lines across to do the rope rescue side of it. Great training. Oh my gosh, it was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Upriver, downriver, your eddies, your strainers, like we go over all of that. So we know when you're going into it. The difference that the Coast Guard side of it is that you're attached to the hoist hook. So that would
Hmm.
be a scenario that you don't get off. So we do a direct deployment and you're going down and you're
Yeah.
literally like holding on to somebody. And then we go a step further with that is that if you're in the helicopter and so there's again two scenarios, right? Scenario one is that your victim is stuck, let's say on a rock or on a strainer,
Hmm.
and they're just a little bit in the water, but they're not moving. The water's going around them. You're going to go down and you're going to get them out of that and then
Yeah.
get them out of the water. Scenario two is what if they fall into the water and now they're going downriver?
Hmm.
So that scenario changes where now the helicopter is chasing and it's kind of a wild like
Hmm.
it's a wild ride, but it's that you're chasing them, but you have to get them, and once you get them, you still have to keep going because you can't
Yeah.
stop. If the
Yeah.
helicopter stops, then they just keep going, and then you lose them because they keep
Yeah.
going downriver. But yeah, there's all sorts of little tips and tricks with that. But
Yeah, that's
flight crew,
from a
they
crew
got to be
chief
on.
perspective. I mean, that's a
Oh
lot. You
yeah,
know, that's really important for the crew chief, because they're calling everything in, and maybe even have control. I don't know if you guys had the where you transfer the control to the crew.
they do have that option. Um, I I don't personally use that because I, as a hoist operator, I'd rather just give the pilot direction. It's
Hmm.
easier. I mean, I've
Something
got
like
enough
that
going
too.
on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
throw the accountability
like
his or her way.
yeah.
It's
Because
crazy.
then, well, and the other side of it is like even the inputs that you could put into the aircraft could are not as fast as the pilots. And what happens when there's a 90-degree turn in the river?
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah,
can't
they
turn
just
at
need to put
90
a
degrees.
cyclic and a collective back
Yeah.
there.
Right next to the pendant and holding onto the cable. Got it.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, that's
So,
awesome. I had in the book, I have a swiftwater rescue that I had, just again, right place, right time. But it's a totally different scenario. I mean, it's
yeah.
most I feel like most river incidences or recoveries because things happen so quick, and it's unfortunate. But if you happen to be there and you can affect it, it's life
Um,
changing.
Eric Williamson, U.S. Navy. You actually just dropped his episode prior to this. Like that's your first episode with him.
Yeah.
His river rescue is amazing. The
Mm.
people that are stuck on the car and going in and pulling one, pulling two, pulling three, and I don't want to even like spoil it for anybody because the ending is just incredible as well. You're gonna have to go. You're gonna have to go listen to it. So I was lucky enough to have him on my podcast as well. So he's told that story, and it is incredible. But when it
Yeah.
comes to moving water and in the river, like Steph Mayer actually says it, a buddy of mine, and he's like, you know, cars float, or like they're 10,000 pounds, but a battleship weighs way more than that, and that thing floats. So
Yeah.
it's floating downriver until it doesn't float anymore. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, crazy, crazy
Yeah.
cool. I love what we do. I really do.
Yeah. Well, you've had some incredible experiences that not many can relate to or really understand. So, based on your years of wisdom and experience, what bit of wisdom would you give to our listeners?
The first one I would tell you is don't quit. Do not quit. Like I don't care what it is that you're doing, just don't quit.
Yeah.
Like I try to, man, I look at, let's go a simple workout, right? And do you work out? I know you still climb mountains, but do you like go to the gym
You're
from
looking
time
at
to
me
time?
like thinking you must not work out.
No, yeah, I know you do. I know you do, but like your workout might be different than mine. Do you go to the gym? You personally?
I don't enjoy gyms. I'm an
Do
outdoor
you
workout type of guy.
Okay, I like it. You and I are going to go for a trail. We're going to do a 5K hike. 5K today, whatever. Uphill, downhill, whatever. Don't quit. Don't get to the 3K mark and be like, "Nah, I'm done."
Yeah.
No. No, finish it. Whatever it is, finish it.
Yeah.
That's all. Like that's and then I
Tell
follow the
you
other
what.
rules. Rule number 1, don't be effing lazy. Stop being lazy.
Right.
Actually, yeah, no, that's rule number 1. Now rule number 2, cardio. Start with those two, and the rest of the day is great.
Yeah. That's so
So,
true. And if you can
uh,
just do those two, you will be so different than the mass majority
yeah,
because so many people do take the easy road out.
yeah,
It's easy to quit. There's a lot of alternatives, but you're
yeah.
not, I don't know, it's setting a stage for just your life, and you quit in one spot, you're going to quit in another, and yeah, and you wonder why things aren't working out, why you're not
Right.
successful. Just go back to basics. Special ops are special because they know the basics and they know them really well.
Hey, if it was easy, everybody would do it,
There you go.
and it's not
Well,
easy. That's why
it's
only
not,
limited people can do it.
that's true. Well, Jason, thank you so much for being on the show. Like it's awesome. Just anytime I talk to you, you're such a bright light. You have great experiences and just a cool person. Just so grateful to have you as a friend and for you being on the show.
Well, thanks, brother. I appreciate it as well. I'm so pumped for you. I'm so excited to get more of these rescue stories out there. We need 10 more podcasts like
Oh,
this.
totally.
Let's
Yeah.
get all I want so many stories. These stories deserve to be out there, and we get enough BS in the media. Let's get some cool stuff like this out there. So thank you for having me, allowing me to drop the podcast, and let's take it over together, man. I love it.
All right. All right. Well, thank you. And thanks for everyone for joining. And we will see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Calm in the Chaos podcast. Please subscribe to be notified of future episodes. And if you enjoyed what you just heard, please leave a 5-star review on whatever platform you listen to podcasts. Until next time, get out there and make a difference so others may live.